Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We have another exciting tale for you today. Right now you should be watching some footage of a recent hike. Me and my family went on up to Lena Lake on the Olympic Peninsula. Great hike. Probably one of my all-time favorite hikes in the area. So if it's friendly for all ages too. So my 4-year-old went up there. He made it all the way. It's about 6 miles. Relatively steep, but it is definitely doable. If a 4-year-old can do it, you can do it. But I wanted to talk to you today about a book I recently read called Twilight of the Thunderbird. Right here, here's the cover. It's written by Howard Hansen. I picked it up at the Dungeness River Museum there. It was in their gift store. I'm always looking for strange books to pick up. And, this was an interesting book. So it was written by Howard Hansen, and he was a member of the Quileute tribe living in La Push. He might still be alive. He'd be pretty old by now. But the reason why it's called Twilight on the Thunderbird, it was a retelling, kind of the last generation of Quileutes before they really got, I don't know if you want to call it assimilated into like white society. So it was, most of the stories took place in about the 1920-ish, when Howard was a kid growing up on that reservation out there in La Push. And I will say, I don't want to say most of the stories were boring, but most of them were just kind of daily life. So as the tribe transitioned from their traditional way of living to the introduced way of living, or the forced way of living of white people, how they were assimilating into that. And Howard thought it was important to kind of like document some old tribal knowledge before it was lost. So it had some interviews with basically the last generation of Quileutes that lived in their traditional way. And so that was really interesting, and it did have some interesting components to it, and I'll get to that. But some of the book, and this is why when in my books I prefer fictional books. So when you write a nonfiction book, a lot of the stuff you go through is just not that interesting. And if you write, fictional books, you can liven up some of those stories. So it was like just some daily living of the tribe of that time. And I did find it interesting, and some stories were definitely more interesting than others. And some of the knowledge there was interesting. One of the interesting things I found, he really went into details about the Shaker Church at that time. So if you guys aren't familiar with Shaker churches, it was basically native tribes kind of blended their traditions with Christianity. And they believed in like Jesus, and they believed in like people called like holy people, and they would go to these Shaker churches, and like I said, they were quasi-Christian, but they had a lot of bells. I guess a lot of bells were involved according to this book, and they kind of go into these trances where they talk to different guardian spirits, ancestor spirits, guardian spirits, whatever. And a couple of reservations still have these Shaker churches, but they were really popular in the early 1900s, right around this time when the tribes were really getting assimilated, either willingly or not, to European society. So that was interesting. I didn't really understand the depth that played, but apparently a lot of bells played into their ceremonies, and candles, trances, and they'd pray, I guess, and sing, and they'd like pay people to like sing and go into trances for them for different types of benefits, healing benefits or whatever. So I found that really interesting. The other thing I found really interesting was they talked about life water, which I have actually heard of this before, but they had a very specific thing they do where they get like different clear pebbles from First Beach, which is out on the coast here in Washington, and they get like different quartz and well-polished little stones, and they put them in water and then let the sun in these jars and let the sun kind of filter into them. And they boil the water first and supercharge the water, and then basically use this water. It would get infused with like the properties of the rocks. And I mean, to some people that sounds crazy, but I mean, I find interesting rocks all the time. I'm really good at finding interesting things. In fact, on this hike today, I found a girl's wallet in the middle of a river. So, I find some cool stones, and there is some power in those stones. Now, they believe drinking the water would like help cure different ailments and stuff. I don't know how true that is, but again, placebo effect's a big deal. If you believe that this water cured your ailment, I mean, the science knows 20% better outcomes if you believe in that placebo. So I found that really interesting. Howard did say like he went on a spirit quest, which is, I'm really interested in spirit quests and in that process. He did not, from what I seen, gone on like a traditional spirit quest. So he was walking with a elder, and he saw a thunderbird in the creek. And it sounded like it was like the outline made out of rocks. And he took that as his spirit animal getting in touch with them. So the thunderbird is on the crest of the Quileute tribe, and the thunderbird is very important to their tribe. It's like their guardian spirit or their crest of arms. So I've found that that part interesting, but I also kind of anticlimactical. The whole book, he was kind of leading up like he went on a big spirit quest, but then he never really went on one. So that was, kind of a letdown there. They also, he hit on an important part too that I want to go before this video gets too long, and I've experienced this myself. So he was basically saying that their tribe couldn't hold on to their old ways. So to try to hold on to the old ways after they had contact with white people was almost like pretending. Their old religion, their own way of following the seasons and harvesting different seasonal animals and plants, because it had just changed. So, the tribes were kind of nomadic, and they had permanent settlements for like the winter, but they kind of follow the food sources around to different places in their area, depending on the season and what was going on. And when white people came, they had trespassing laws and land they couldn't go on, so they couldn't hunt these areas, they couldn't harvest berries in these areas. And so basically their traditional way of life had ended. And that kind of included their traditional religion. And he really emphasized, just holding on to that old way just wouldn't work. And, basically, he was even saying, hey, you have to kind of like embrace Christianity and kind of, conform it to our traditional views. You got to kind of blend it together. I don't go into my history a lot, but at one point I thought I was like a Norse pagan. Like this is probably about, 15 years ago. And it was kind of that way with the Norse paganism too. As I researched it and I did more and more research, it's hard to be a Norse pagan. If you get into their true beliefs, only the strong basically deserve to lead, and only the strong get to survive. It's not really compatible with today's society. And once I accepted that, I embraced Christianity. I've been a much happier person. And I mean, that's not to say there's not some value in knowing that culture, but just in the modern world we live in, you can't really be a traditional Norse pagan like how they were in Viking age. So let me know what you guys think. Have you read the book? Are you interested in that book? Give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.